Listen closely, chosen one. You've walked through valleys so silent that even your prayers seem to echo back unanswered. There were nights when your tears were your only companions, when you whispered to the ceiling asking if heaven still remembered your name. You carried pain so heavy that even the strongest words of comfort from others couldn't reach the depth of your ache. And yet you kept walking. You walked when the path disappeared beneath your feet. You walked when no one clapped for your faith. You walked when every door slammed, every promise seemed delayed, and every friend grew distant. You walked alone, but you were never truly alone. Because in those unseen moments, when you thought you were breaking, God was beside you. His silence wasn't absence. It was presence disguised. His distance wasn't neglect. It was protection perfected. You didn't see him in the storm, but he was in every gust of wind, keeping you from collapsing. You didn't hear him in the chaos, but he was the steady rhythm that kept your heart beating through it all. You thought the loneliness meant you were abandoned, but heaven was actually isolating you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. The crowd couldn't walk where you're going. The noise couldn't accompany the next level of your calling. You had to be separated so you could be strengthened. And now God whispers this truth. The journey you thought was empty was actually sacred. Every tear, every unanswered question, every lonely night, they were divine footprints marking the way. This message isn't for the faint-hearted. It's for the ones who know what it means to walk in faith with no map. It's for the souls who've been refined in silence, purified in pain, and hidden in seasons where no one noticed their growth. You didn't lose your way, you found your strength. You didn't walk alone, you walked with God. And tonight, heaven reveals why. Because what felt like abandonment was divine accompaniment. What felt like isolation was holy preparation. And now, the reason behind your lonely path will be unveiled. And as you kept walking, something in your spirit began to shift. You couldn't explain it, but the silence that once felt unbearable started to feel sacred. It was as if the stillness was alive, whispering, teaching, molding you from within. You began to realize that perhaps God hadn't abandoned you. Perhaps he was speaking in a language only your soul could understand. There is a mystery in the way heaven moves. It rarely announces itself. When God walks beside you, he often comes softly. No thunder, no lightning, no spectacle. Just a quiet nearness that only the sensitive heart can perceive. You didn't feel his hand yet. He guided every step. You didn't see his face yet. He was shaping every outcome behind the scenes. You see, there are seasons when God hides his presence, not to test your faith, but to deepen it. He could have shown you the full plan. But if he had, you would have leaned on understanding instead of trust. So he allowed the unknown to become your teacher. He allowed the silence to stretch your capacity to believe in what you couldn't see. Heaven saw the nights when your faith trembled but didn't fall. Heaven saw when you kept showing up tired, heartbroken, unsure, but still showing up. And while the world saw a person barely holding on, heaven saw a warrior being forged in the fire of endurance. God was not distant. He was walking so close that if you had turned your head even slightly in the spirit, you would have seen the imprint of his light beside your shadow. Every sigh you released, he heard. Every step you took, he counted. Every tear that hit the ground, he recorded. Because those tears were prayers too. Sometimes divine companionship is not about what you feel, it's about what you know. Faith isn't built in the noise of miracles. It's built in the quiet, where nothing seems to move but everything is being arranged. So now as heaven opens this message, understand this was not a mistake. You were meant to walk through this valley, not because you were forgotten, but because you were chosen to experience the deeper nature of God's companionship. Others see his hand in blessing. You saw his heart in brokenness. Others hear him in miracles. You heard him in silence. And this is where the divine revelation begins. Because every step of solitude was actually a chapter in your preparation. Every night of questioning was a doorway to revelation. And now the veil begins to lift. The Spirit of God speaks. You thought I left you, but I walked beside you unseen. You thought you were losing strength, but I was exchanging your strength for mine. What you called isolation, I called intimacy. There comes a sacred moment when heaven turns silence into speech. Not through words heard by the ear, but through revelation felt by the heart. And this is that moment. The Spirit says, you did not walk alone, you walked with me. Every season of isolation was divine alignment. Every delay was strategic. Every heartbreak was holy ground. You wondered why doors closed without warning. Why people who once understood you suddenly could not. Why opportunities slipped through your hands even when you gave everything. It was not rejection, it was redirection. You were being rerouted toward the path of divine fulfillment, one that required complete separation from what was temporary. For too long, you walked surrounded by noise voices that disguised themselves as comfort, but drained your discernment. So heaven led you into solitude where distractions could no longer drown out destiny. You thought you were losing people, but you were actually gaining clarity. This was the prophecy hidden in your path. You were being set apart to carry light in a dark generation. You were being refined to speak words that pierce through spiritual blindness. The loneliness was never about absence. It was consecration. It was God saying, before I send you out, I must sit you down. Before I reveal you to the world, I must reveal myself to you. And in that hidden place, something supernatural happened. Your spirit began to expand. You started to sense things others couldn't, to discern shifts before they occurred. You became sensitive to divine timing, to energy, to truth. You could walk into a room and feel the spiritual climate change. That wasn't sensitivity, that was awakening. Heaven has been cultivating a rare breed of warriors, those who walk by faith when sight fails. You are one of them. The world doesn't yet understand what was birthed in your solitude, but it will, because now the time of unveiling draws near. The prophecy declares, the one who walked through the wilderness will now walk in wonder. You endured deserts so you could carry rain. You endured silence so your words would carry authority. You endured betrayal so your heart would mirror God's mercy. Every pain was a prophecy in disguise, a hidden instruction preparing you for influence. And now heaven moves. The same path that broke you will soon bless you. The same doors that shut will reopen not for validation, but for fulfillment. Because this is not the end of your isolation, it is the revelation of your assignment. Do you feel it? That stirring deep within your spirit, the quiet confirmation that something long promised is shifting. That is not imagination. That is divine alignment manifesting in real time. God has been walking beside you, but now he walks through you. This is the moment when heaven's whisper becomes command, when preparation becomes purpose. You will see sudden clarity where confusion once lived. You will see new people divinely placed around you, those who carry light, not competition. You will notice favor that doesn't make sense, doors that open without striving. Because the prophecy has ripened. The season of walking unseen is closing. The unveiling begins now. And as it does, remember, you didn't walk alone through pain. God was engraving his promise inside you. You didn't lose your strength. He replaced it with supernatural endurance. And soon, you'll look back and realize that the path you feared was actually the proof you were being guided. The silence was not punishment. It was prophecy, and now it is fulfilled. There is a rhythm to divine timing, one that cannot be rushed, one that the soul must learn to dance to in the dark. What you walked through was not random. It was choreography. Every step of solitude was synchronized with heaven's design. God was not just watching your journey. He was composing it. When you thought you were lost, you were actually being led. When you felt forgotten, you were being focused. When you cried out, "God, where are you?" He whispered back, "I'm here teaching you to walk by faith, not by sight." The human heart longs for company, but destiny often begins in isolation. Think of Moses in the desert, David in the fields, Elijah in the cave, Jesus in the wilderness. Every vessel of purpose must first be emptied of dependency, of the need to be understood, validated, or seen. Solitude isn't the absence of people, it's the presence of purification. God stripped away the noise so you could hear His frequency. He allowed silence so your spiritual senses could sharpen. He allowed disappointment so your discernment could deepen. Because true power is never born in comfort. It is forged in consecration. You see, the valley you walked through wasn't a punishment, it was a womb. It looked like isolation, but it was incubation. You were being prepared to carry something that could not survive in shallow soil. The pain was the pressure required to birth your purpose. Every tear that fell was water to the seed of your calling. Every heartbreak cracked open the ground where your anointing would take root. And though it looked like nothing was growing, heaven was whispering, "Wait. I am working beneath the surface." In the spirit, growth rarely announces itself. The seed doesn't make noise when it breaks open, but that's where life begins. The darkness you endured was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of your bloom. And here lies the divine mystery. God chose to walk beside you unseen, because He wanted you to recognize His voice, not His form. If you had seen Him in visible ways, you might have depended on signs. But He wanted your faith to be unshakable, built not on appearances, but on intimacy. Heaven's silence was your invitation to grow closer, to sense Him in subtler ways. To realize that faith isn't just believing that God can move, it's trusting that He is moving, even when everything looks still. You were learning the art of divine stillness, the sacred calm that carries authority. You see, spiritual maturity isn't about how loudly you can declare God's name. It's about how deeply you can rest in His presence when He says nothing at all. That's why you were hidden. God hides those He is healing. He conceals those He is cultivating. He protects those He is preparing. If the world had seen you too soon, they would have misread your process. So heaven covered you in obscurity until your oil was ready. That walking alone season was actually a divine classroom, one where you learned obedience without applause, love without reciprocation, strength without recognition. And now the very things that once broke you have become your authority. You can comfort others because you know what pain feels like. You can discern deception because you've lived through betrayal. You can recognize true light because you've walked through shadows. The loneliness was not wasted. It was a mirror reflecting your dependence on divine companionship. And in that mirror, God showed you who you really are, not who the world said you were, but who heaven has always known you to be. This was never about walking alone. It was about walking aware. Aware that His presence is not always loud. Aware that love can be silent, but still secure. Aware that purpose can bloom in places no one else visits. So when you look back, you'll realize the footsteps you thought were yours alone were doubled in the Spirit. The silence you mistook for emptiness was holy instruction. And the path that felt endless was a bridge to revelation. That's the spiritual meaning hidden in your journey, not isolation, but initiation. Not punishment, but purification. Not distance, but divine proximity. And now that you've endured the hidden years, heaven begins to show you the signs, the confirmations that what you felt in faith is about to manifest in sight. And then, it begins. The quiet turns into movement. Not loud, not dramatic, just subtle shifts that only a tuned spirit can perceive. You start to notice things that don't feel like coincidence anymore. Little signs, gentle confirmations, whispers from heaven reminding you were never alone. At first, it's the peace, not the kind that comes from things going right, but the kind that appears in the middle of the storm. You find yourself calmer than usual, unexplainably steady, even when circumstances haven't changed. That peace is not random, it's evidence. It means heaven has surrounded you. God's presence has moved from testing you to resting on you. Then comes the alignment. Suddenly, conversations start to lead you exactly where you need to go. People you haven't heard from in years resurface with divine timing. Ideas that once felt out of reach start flowing again. You sense heaven's fingerprints, arranging the unseen details, connecting dots you didn't even know existed. Then comes the awareness. Your spiritual sensitivity increases. You can feel energy shift when you enter a room. You sense when something is off without explanation, or when God's hand is on someone without a word being said. This is discernment awakening a gift that was birthed in your solitude. It's heaven trusting you with deeper perception because you learned to listen in silence. You may also notice repetition, certain numbers, phrases, or themes that keep showing up. It's not superstition, it's divine symbolism. When heaven repeats something, it's confirmation that the message has been sent and received. That recurring verse you keep stumbling upon, that same dream with slight variations, that song that plays right when you needed reassurance. These are spiritual echoes, not accidents. Then there's the lightness, the lifting in your spirit. You wake up one day and realize that the heaviness you carried for so long is gone. You can't explain why, but the grief that used to visit you has lost its power. That's not emotional fluctuation, that's divine release. God has broken the invisible chains of that past season, and your soul is beginning to breathe again. And finally, the divine interruptions. Moments when plans fall apart only to lead you into something better. Delays that reveal blessings you would have missed had you rushed. Encounters that feel orchestrated because they are. Heaven rearranges time, place, and people to ensure you meet what belongs to you. These are the signs that heaven is walking beside you. Not every miracle comes with thunder. Some arrive with stillness and symmetry. Pay attention to what repeats, to what aligns, to what brings peace for no reason. Those are not random. Those are your confirmations. You are stepping into the season where God doesn't need to prove His presence. He simply reveals it. And every sign is whispering the same message: I never left you. I only hid long enough for you to find me within. But even as the signs unfold, the journey doesn't suddenly become easy, because every revelation invites resistance. Every divine unveiling stirs the unseen realm. And just when you start to feel the peace of progress, the enemy whispers one last lie. You're still alone. That's when the hidden challenges emerge, not to destroy you, but to confirm the strength you now carry. The same silence that once shaped you now becomes a shield. But you'll be asked to stand firm in faith again this time, without the same desperation, with quiet authority. The first challenge is fatigue, spiritual exhaustion, that tries to convince you to stop short. You may feel weary not because you've lost strength, but because your soul is adjusting to a higher vibration. The transition between wilderness and promise always feels heavy. It's the weight of destiny pressing into reality. When this happens, rest in the rhythm of grace. Don't rush. Don't force. Breathe. God is recalibrating you for greater capacity. The second challenge is misunderstanding. Those around you may not perceive the change happening within you. Some will sense your shift and grow distant. Others may question your peace or your silence, interpreting your stillness as pride. But remember, people often resist what they cannot discern. Don't take their blindness personally. You're not meant to be explained in this season. You're meant to be elevated. The third challenge is temptation to retreat, the pull to return to what's familiar, because the unknown feels uncertain. You'll be tempted to rejoin old circles, revisit old habits, or reconnect with old patterns simply because they're comfortable. But comfort is not always safe. It's often the enemy of calling. Resist the urge to go backward. You didn't come this far to repeat a cycle heaven already closed. Then comes the test of silence again. But this time it's different. It's not the silence of abandonment. It's the silence of trust. God will allow moments where you'll need to act without fresh instruction to walk in what you've already learned. That's not punishment, that's maturity. Heaven is saying, I taught you how to hear me in the quiet. Now live by what I already spoke. And perhaps the hardest challenge, the waiting right before the unveiling. It's that in-between place where everything feels near, but not yet. The blessing is in sight, but not in hand. This is where many give up, but not you. You've been trained in the dark. You know how to endure unseen seasons. So when this last test comes, don't despair. It's the final refining fire before the reward. Remember, trials near the end are confirmation, not contradiction. They're proof that something holy is about to emerge. The enemy only fights what's about to flourish. So lift your head. You're not breaking, you're birthing. The challenges are not punishment. They're prophecy taking shape. Now that you've seen the signs and felt the shaking, heaven speaks clearly. Listen closely, for this is the moment where guidance becomes command, not from fear, but from love. These next steps will not just carry you forward. They will align you with the rhythm of your destiny. The Spirit of God says, I have walked beside you through the silence, and now I call you to walk beside me in obedience. Do not look back. Do not linger where I have lifted my hand. What is behind you was necessary for your making, but it cannot sustain your becoming. This is your first instruction. Release what no longer carries divine weight. You cannot take every connection, every habit, or every memory into your next season. Some things were divine for the previous chapter, but not this one. Let them go with gratitude, not grief. When you release willingly, heaven replenishes quickly. Your second instruction, guard your atmosphere. Where you are going, discernment is not optional. It is armor. Not every conversation deserves your energy. Not every opportunity deserves your yes. Your peace is prophetic currency. Spend it wisely. Be selective about the voices you allow to speak into your spirit. If the energy drains your clarity, it's not from God. Your third instruction, stay in rhythm with divine timing. Do not rush what heaven is still arranging. Patience is not inactivity. It is participation in God's perfect timing. You are not behind. You are being synchronized. Trust the pauses. Trust the process. Some blessings arrive quietly because they're meant to be received in stillness, not spectacle. Your fourth instruction, speak life over your path. Your words carry creative power. They either build altars or barriers. Stop rehearsing your pain. Start declaring your promise. Every morning, affirm the truth. Heaven has already spoken, I am guided. I am covered. I am becoming who God saw before the foundation of the world. When you speak it, the atmosphere aligns to it. Your fifth instruction: remain anchored in gratitude. Even in uncertainty, thank God for the unseen protection. Gratitude is not a reaction, it's revelation. It opens portals of favor that worry can never reach. While others are complaining about the wilderness, you will be discovering rivers hidden beneath the sand. Your sixth instruction: tend to your inner fire. Keep your faith burning even when the wind blows. Pray when you don't feel like it. Worship when your emotions resist it. Consistency and devotion build spiritual authority. You're not performing for heaven, you're partnering with it. When you cultivate stillness, heaven fills it with instruction. And the final instruction: walk boldly into the unknown. Faith was never meant to be comfortable. You've learned to trust God in silence. Now trust Him in movement. He's calling you out of hesitation and into holy confidence. You don't need the full picture. You only need obedience for the next step. As you move, the path will appear. This is the divine strategy for your unfolding season release. Guard. Wait. Speak. Thank. Burn. Move. Each action unlocks a new layer of blessing. Each act of obedience draws heaven closer into manifestation. The same God who walked beside you unseen will now walk before you revealed, clearing paths, aligning hearts, and opening doors you could never force. Do not fear what's coming. The path ahead is not unfamiliar to heaven. It's already written. You are stepping into the script God authored long before your first breath. So walk with reverence. Walk with awareness. Walk knowing that every step is sacred. You are not rebuilding from nothing. You are rebuilding from revelation. And every obedient step is prophecy fulfilled. And now, rest. After obedience comes stillness, and in stillness comes peace. You don't have to fight anymore. You don't have to prove that you're worthy of the promise. Heaven already decided you are covered. All around you, unseen forces are at work. Angels have been stationed on paths you haven't even walked yet. Winds are shifting, aligning everything for your good. Wherever your feet tread, divine surveillance follows, not to control you, but to keep you safe. God has assigned protection not only around you, but within you. Your discernment is your inner alarm. Your peace is your confirmation. No weapon formed against you will prosper, not because the weapon doesn't exist, but because it's defective in your presence. Every attack sent against your mind will dissolve before it reaches your heart. Every whisper of fear will evaporate in the light of truth. The same God who walked beside you in loneliness now surrounds you in love. There will be moments when the atmosphere feels heavy again, when memories or emotions try to creep back in. When that happens, don't panic, just breathe, and remember you're not in that season anymore. The shadows may look familiar, but they have no authority. God didn't bring you this far to let darkness reclaim what He redeemed. You are walking beneath divine covering now. Heaven's hand is upon your head like a crown of fire, not destructive but illuminating. Wherever you go, favor precedes you. People may not understand why they're drawn to help you, bless you, or open doors for you, but you'll know. It's the invisible echo of divine promise. When you sleep, peace will guard you like a shield. When you rise, grace will escort you into your assignments. When you speak, heaven will breathe through your words. And even in silence, your spirit will radiate strength because you've been infused with presence itself. You're not walking through uncertainty. You're walking through orchestration. The path has already been cleared. The mountains that once loomed ahead are melting like wax before His glory. Your steps are ordered. Your heart is secured. Your destiny is sealed. So release the last traces of fear. You no longer have to wonder if you're protected. You are the proof of divine protection. You survived what should have ended you, You overcame what was meant to break you. That alone is evidence that heaven guards its own. You are safe spiritually, emotionally, and eternally. You are not walking alone anymore. You're walking enveloped in divine light, and soon that light will not only cover you, it will transform you. And then the shift comes. Quiet at first, like dawn before the sun climbs. But you can feel it, the air, the timing, the rhythm of life itself beginning to move in your favor. What once felt delayed suddenly accelerates. What was lost begins to return multiplied. People who once overlooked you now speak your name with honor. The very doors that refused to open swing wide, not because you knocked harder, but because heaven turned the key. You realize now the walk alone was the chrysalis. The breaking was the birthing. The silence was the soil where your wings grew. And now, you rise. The transformation isn't loud, it's luminous. Peace radiates from you in ways words can't explain. You walk differently, not in pride, but in presence. You don't chase validation anymore because you are the evidence. The anointing that once felt distant now flows through you effortlessly. The prophecy fulfills itself in layers. First, inward, your heart softens, your faith stabilizes, your discernment sharpens. Then outward, opportunities align, favor appears, connections form that make no earthly sense. The timing is too perfect to be random. It's divine orchestration unfolding like music composed long before you existed. You are no longer the person who began this journey. The version of you that doubted has dissolved. The version that feared has fallen away. What remains is the refined soul, golden, steady, radiant, with quiet authority. When people look at you, they won't just see survival. They'll sense resurrection. You carry the fragrance of victory, not the noise of ego, but the stillness of one who has seen God up close and lived to tell the story. You carry a light that doesn't flicker because it was kindled in darkness. And this is the fulfillment. You now walk with God and in God. The one who once walked beside you has intertwined his steps with yours. You move as one, heaven and humanity in harmony. Every choice you make echoes in eternity because it's aligned with divine will. The things that once broke you now bless you. The voices that doubted you will one day testify of your endurance. And you'll know deep within, it was all worth it. The tears became testimony. The silence became song. The isolation became illumination. You walked alone, and now you walk awakened. This is what it means to be chosen. To be broken without bitterness. To be hidden until holy. To be released in perfect time. You are entering a season where the spiritual becomes visible, where prayers take form, promises breathe, and purpose stands before you, embodied in reality. It won't just happen around you, it will happen through you. Wherever you go, transformation will follow. The storm has passed. The night has served its purpose. And the dawn you waited for is no longer coming, it's here. The prophecy is fulfilled. God didn't just walk beside you. He walked you into becoming the promise itself. Take a breath. Let everything you've just heard settle deep into your spirit. You've walked through the valley. You've stood in silence. You've waited in faith. And now, you've crossed into fulfillment. Heaven's whisper echoes one more time. You were never alone. Every step was sacred. Every tear was a seed. Every moment was preparation for glory. Now, as you step forward into this new season, let these words anchor you. Speak them aloud, declare them with conviction, and let the vibration of truth surround your atmosphere. Affirmation 1. I am divinely guided and never alone. God walks beside me in every season. Affirmation 2. My solitude was not my ending. It was the soil of my transformation. Affirmation 3. Every delay worked for my development, every silence refined my spirit. Affirmation 4. I am walking in alignment, covered by light and filled with peace. Let these affirmations live in your breath, morning and night. Let them remind you that heaven has already finished what you are only beginning to see. When doubt whispers again, when shadows try to reappear, speak these truths. They are your shield and your song. And now, the final blessing. May the presence that walked beside you in silence now go before you in glory. May divine favor surround you like fire that cannot be quenched. May your footsteps carry the sound of peace into every space you enter. May your heart rest knowing that heaven has already written victory into your story. May your eyes see the goodness of God in the land of the living. You are covered. You are chosen. You are complete. This season marks the end of wandering and the beginning of wonder. You will look back on the years you thought were wasted and realize every step was divine choreography. Every night you cried became the reason someone else will heal through your story. Walk forward with confidence. You are not who you were. You are who you were always meant to be. And as you walk, you will feel it, that same presence beside you, steady, faithful, eternal, whispering once again. You walked alone, but I walked with you.